On today's episode, Spartan Socal recap with Heather Bode and Jack Bauer. Welcome to the OCR Report podcast, brought to you by the OCRReport.com. We are the only podcast to focus exclusively on the elite sport of obstacle course racing, from Spartan to Tough Mudder to the OCR World Championships, and wherever the elites are racing, we are there. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the OCR Report. Welcome back to the OCR Report podcast. Thank you for listening. My name is Will Hicks, and I am thrilled to be with you today. Are you running? Are you driving? So, our podcast is about a week old, almost exactly a week old, and since we started, Spartan has had their first race of the year, and Tough Mudder has eliminated their entire elite racing system of compensation. So, sorry guys, our bad. It's been 3 or 4 days since the announcement came down from Tough Mudder that in 2019 there will be no prize money at any of their racing events. Tougher Mudder, Toughest Mudder, World's Toughest Mudder. Of those, World's Toughest Mudder is the biggest surprise. It's still kind of setting in. It's a big deal. It's a big kind of a shift in thinking that we all have to approach the year with. And I've talked with several of the elites, names, people. You've heard some of them on the podcast already. Chris Mendoza, Amelia Boone, Ray Coble. And everyone is checking their schedule and their calendar and adjusting it accordingly. Rhea will not be at World's Toughest Mudder because of this. She's the women's defending champion, 2-time champion. She won't be there to potentially three-peat or to defend her title. Chris Mendoza, he won it last year. He's the men's defending champion. He may or may not be at World's Toughest this year. We don't know. Amelia Boone told us that Amelia Boone is the 3-time women's champion, very well known in the community, and really, as far as OCR athletes, has the most mainstream or crossover appeal of any of them. She told us that she is planning on World's Toughest Mudder, especially if it looks like this might be the last one. So it's going to be a year, and we will see what happens. It can be depressing, right? We're like, what's happening? I don't know. Is Tough Mudder going to be around in a year? You know what? We don't know. I can't predict the future. And if I could, I wouldn't be doing a podcast. I'd be going out playing the lottery. So all I can tell you is that I care about obstacle course racing as much as you do. And I wish the best and hope the best for it. Maybe, let me give you a crazy scenario. Let's say this is kind of the end of an era for obstacle course racing. It'd be terrible, right? I'd be very sad. But you know what? Get out there and run every race you can this year then. Take advantage of it. When I was a kid, I used to collect baseball cards. And there were 3 baseball card shops within walking distance of my house. Now, there is 1 baseball card shop in the entire city that I grew up in. Sometimes great things don't last forever. Don't be sad it's over. Be happy that it happened. I can't predict the future. All I know is I'm going to enjoy 2019 to the best of my ability, and I would encourage you to do the same. On today's episode, we're going to talk with Jack Bauer and Heather Bode about the first Spartan race of the year, Spartan Socal. It was a great race. Heather was there. Jack was watching from afar, checking the statistics and the racers and race results. We're talking with both of them about the race. And then we're going to bring Jack back at the end of the show to talk about upcoming races for Spartan. Before we talk to them, you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The OCR Report. And you can subscribe to our email newsletter by texting the word TOUGH to the number 22828. That is TOUGH to the number 22828. If you are international, shoot me an email at willhicks@gmail.com and let me know that, and I will sign you up manually. Before we talk with our guests, let's talk some news. Tough Mudder has announced, in the wake of their pulling prize money for Toughest Mudder and World's Toughest Mudder and all the races this year, Tough Mudder has announced the dates for Toughest Mudder Australia. Toughest Mudder Australia will be on October 19th. If that date sounds familiar to you, it may be because it's the same date as Toughest Mudder West in Las Vegas in the U.S. This is the second date this year that has been double booked for Toughest Mudder. On May 18th, there will be Toughest Mudder UK, Midlands, and Toughest Mudder East in Philly. So last year and the year before, last year there was one person that ran every single Toughest Mudder, Charlie Bauer. And the year before that, there were 4 people that ran every single Toughest Mudder. This year, there will be 0 people that run every Toughest Mudder. As long as we're talking dates, let's put some dates on your calendar to look forward to as far as elite OCR races. The first race in the Spartan US Series is on February 23rd in Jacksonville. The Spartan US Series is a 5-race series that will bring these are the races that were on television a couple years ago. They're no longer on TV, but they are live streamed, and they attract the best of the best from the United States and North America. As I mentioned a minute ago, the first Toughest Mudder of the year will be May 18th. There will be 2 of them in the UK and in Philadelphia, May 18th for the first Toughest Mudder. And then looking way down the calendar, Tahoe, Spartan World Championship will be on September 29th. That's a Sunday, not a Saturday. They're moving it to Sunday this year. They want more people on the course watching. They want more spectators. They want more of a race, kind of not festival, but a spectator-friendly event atmosphere. So that will be on September 29th, the Spartan World Championship. The OCR World Championships will be in England, October 11th through the 13th. And World's Toughest Mudder will be November 16th through the 17th. If you're new to the sport, those are the 3 biggest races of the year. Spartan World Championship, the OCR World Championships, and World's Toughest Mudder. There are a lot of big races along the way, but those are the 3 kind of crown jewel championship races. Let's talk results for the Spartan Socal Sprint. The Spartan Super was on Saturday. For the men, in first place was Veejay Jones, finishing in 1 hour and 2 minutes and 27 seconds. In second was Nikolaj Dam, finishing in 1 hour, 2 minutes, 46 seconds. And third was Kirk Dewindt, finishing in 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 39 seconds. For the women in the Socal Super on Saturday, in first place was Nell Rojas in 1 hour, 10 minutes, and 37 seconds. In second was Nicole Mericle in 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 48 seconds. And in third was Natalie Miano in 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 24 seconds. On Sunday, the Socal Sprint. In first place was Veejay Jones again in 27 minutes and 33 seconds. In second place, again, Nikolaj Dam, 27 minutes and 57 seconds. And in third place was Ryan Kent in 29 minutes and 14 seconds. For the women, the Socal Sprint, in first place was Nicole Mericle in 31:41. In second was Nell Rojas in 32:19. And in third, again, was Natalie Miano in 34:18. Hey, thank you to those of you who have left a review for the OCR Report podcast already. I appreciate it. I still haven't decided if I'm going to read each review on the air. Would you like me to? In fact, if you would like me to, you should leave a review and tell me yes or no. Because if you leave a review, your vote counts for more. To leave a review for the podcast, open your iPhone or iOS device, your iPad even. Click the purple podcast button. Search for the OCR Report. Click our logo, then scroll down to click Write a Review. I would appreciate it. Jack Bauer is the recognized expert in the obstacle course racing industry for statistics, race results, and data tracking. He is a frequent guest on our podcast, and we are happy to have him back. After we talk with Jack, we're going to talk with Heather Bode. Heather is the host of the Overcome and Run podcast, another member of the OCR Report family. You can find her podcast anywhere podcasts are available, and also at the OCRreport.com. And after we talk with Heather, we're going to bring Jack back for a preview of upcoming races from Spartan. It's time to talk with Jack and Heather. Let's go to the phones. Jack Bauer, thanks for coming back.
No problem. It's pretty cool to see how the weekend turned out after our predictions.
We had our first weekend of races in the books. Tell me, let's talk about the men first. Talk about the Super on Saturday.
Yeah, so Veejay ended up winning it. No surprise. He's clearly one of the best in the sport. But then we had some international racers come over, and Nikolaj Dam, he's from Denmark. He and Leon Kofod, he's another Danish racer. They're both in the U.S. for about a month doing a training camp in Flagstaff, Arizona. And the two of them came over. Nikolaj ran both days. Leon only did the Sunday sprint. But basically from all the race recaps, it sounds like Kirk Dewindt, Nikolaj, and Veejay were in like a three-way battle for most of the race. And then around mile 7, Kirk, he kind of ran out of wind. He's been injured for a while, so I think his running legs at this point early in the season just weren't underneath him. So he just kind of ran out of gas, and then it was a two-man battle between Veejay and Nikolaj, and Veejay ended up pulling ahead towards the end. But clearly, these European racers, a lot of people don't recognize the names in the U.S., but they deserve a lot of respect because U.S. versus European or other international racing series, it's a different style, and you can see that when OCR Worlds happens. But a lot of them are legit, and this just proves Nikolaj finishing less than 20 seconds behind Veejay in a very speedy course. He's legit.
Even in a shorter course, I say shorter course, the Super's not a short race.
Yeah, an hour, 2 minutes.
20-second, 19-second difference between first and second place is pretty rare.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty minuscule. I mean, that right there, just obstacle proficiency, or you just attack a hill a little bit better than someone else, and that makes the whole difference.
Let's stay with the men. Let's go to Sunday. Talk about the sprint.
So on Sunday, as I mentioned before, Leon Kofod, he was the European OCR champs, kind of like it's the Stratton Vermont version, the NORAMs, only for Europe. That's what they had earlier this summer. And Leon, he ended up finishing fourth in this Socal race this weekend. But back in over the summer, he was one of only 3 people to finish the course in under an hour. He finished it in about 33 minutes. Just think of that. Literally, imagine you go to NORAM, and there are 3 people who finish under an hour, and the winner is half that time. Only 1 female finished the entire race. Imagine the outrage that would happen. So this guy clearly is phenomenal at obstacles. He ended up getting fourth. Ryan Kent got third. He had a rebound race. Nikolaj got second, and he was just behind Veejay, who ended up winning by 24 seconds. So kind of the same gap roughly between the 2 days. And John Clark, one of the best Masters athletes out there, he finished fifth.
Something to think about. These elite athletes, yes, they're elite athletes, but they're regular people too. They had an off season, and they have to, kick the rust off just like the rest of us.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like I said, they're traveling from Europe. They're staying in the U.S. for about a month or so for a training camp, but that jet lag's real. They've got other commitments on the side, so it's pretty impressive what they're doing, and just showing that obstacle racing is more than just who the best U.S. racer is and John Albin, because there are a lot of really good racers out there, and it's really cool seeing them come over here instead of U.S. racers go over there once a year for OCR Worlds. And this isn't even a major U.S. championship series type of race. Sometimes you see the top Canadians come down, and then that gives you a little more respect on how good those guys truly are. You saw that with McHale and Jesse Bruce last year coming to West Virginia, getting 5th and 6th. But it really gives you a good perspective on how deep the European side of the field is.
Let's talk about the women for the sprint the Super on Saturday.
Yeah, so do you remember who I said to be on everyone's radar this year?
There was one girl you said, not a common name, but you said we should look out for Nell Rojas. How did she do?
Yes, I did, yeah, and she actually ended up beating Nicole Mericle by 1 minute and 11 seconds. That doesn't happen in a fast course. She's the real deal. So I knew the data was saying that she's going to be legit based on what she did at the Tough Mudder Championship. And anybody who just sees on paper that you run a 2:31 marathon, you are clearly a very fit individual. So no surprises. She came in and did really well. I know Nicole missed her spear, and I heard an interview with Heather, and Nell was saying that she was kind of just shadowing what Nicole did. And then, when Nicole slowed down or when she attacked on a certain obstacle, that's what Nell would try to do the same. Her grip strength isn't there, but she was kind of just learning on the fly. And then her running ability was able to keep up with Nicole. Let me tell you this. Remember 2015, Robert Killian shows up to New Jersey. No one knows who he is, but he was just kind of hanging around at the front, just seeing what Ryan Atkins and a couple of the other top guys were doing the entire race, just learning off of them on the fly. And fast forward a few months, he's the world champion. So Nell might have been doing something very similar, where she was just kind of seeing how should I attack? When should I attack? What's the most efficient way through some of these obstacles, learning off of a very experienced and very accomplished racer like Nicole. So I think that it's going to be a very dangerous year for her competition.
So obviously it's early. It's one race, right? Or 1 weekend, 2 races. But you think Nell's one to watch the rest of the year?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I would immediately put her in that the top, the Fab Five that people were saying, plus Rebecca Hammond. I would put Nell in that group right now. I believe she said that she was going to be in Jacksonville. I don't expect anything other than I'm not saying that she's going to win, but definitely a legitimate podium threat after this performance.
You mentioned Nicole Mericle in second. Who was in third place?
Natalie Miano. So I called her. I know I mentioned Faye Morgan, not Faye Stenning. Sorry, the other really good Faye. Faye Morgan in fourth, Timmy Brand in fifth, Nicole McManus in sixth, Emily Smith, and then Evelyn Louise were seventh and eighth. So I named 7 of those 8 in the predictions. So it's pretty cool to see that most of it turned out the way that I thought it would.
What happened for the women on Sunday?
On Sunday, it was a reversal where Nicole actually got the best of Nell. Nicole won the race in 31:41, and Nell got 32:19. I'm not sure if she just doesn't have the experience racing back-to-back days, or if Nicole ran a perfectly clean race and was like, you know what, I'm not going to lose to my friend this time. And then third place podium was 34:18 for Natalie Miano, so she was about a couple minutes back of them. And Natalie had a really strong performance. She's in really good shape this early into the year, so I think that she's going to make some pretty big moves this year as well.
So the same 3 women on the podium both days, just first and second swapped.
Exactly, back to back. So I think that those 3 clearly showed that they're in really good shape early in the season. But that brings me to another point. Look at what happened on the Sunday or in the Saturday Super. Ryan Kent got 7th. Just because he's finishing that point early in the year, and some of the women that we just mentioned are dominating early on, it's the first race of the year. They are not focused on how good they place at the end of January. This is all about, for most of them who are going to be racing the U.S. Series and presumably at Tahoe, they want to be in the best shape possible 8 months from now at the end of September. It doesn't. Ryan Kent, he finished 5th place at Tahoe, if I remember right, and right now he got 7th in the season opener. That doesn't mean that he's regressed or anything. Who knows what he did for a workout. He lives in South Carolina now. He just took a 6-hour cross country flight. I don't know if there was a layover or anything. That travel adds up. The time zone change, the jet lag, and then he probably had some sponsor commitments while he was out there in California. So anybody who's looking into this and thinking, oh man, Ryan Kent has taken a huge setback, maybe he's not recovered from his injury that he got at Fenway because he separated his shoulder during the stadium race in the end or early November. Don't look too much into this. It's a long season, and Veejay, who won, he was on Heather's podcast, and he said that he's not even racing the first U.S. Series race of the year. His debut for the big races this year are going to be in late March in Alabama. So he's not even going to be doing Jacksonville. So you have to keep your eyes on the prize, and don't look too much into the early race performances, because that doesn't mean too much in the grand scheme of things.
Jack, any last thoughts on Spartan Socal?
Like I said, couple people didn't show up. Mark Batras didn't show up. Glenn didn't either. But that's the thing. It's really difficult. Even if someone has podiumed a few times at a certain venue and they keep showing up year after year, doesn't mean that they're going to show up to an earlier race, especially with such a long season, even if they live close. So it's kind of tough to make predictions all the time. But I feel like the big players, most of them performed just how you'd expect to. And it was really good to see that Nell lived up to my prediction, and I wasn't surprised because she's just a phenomenal racer. So watch out for her this year, and I think it's going to be a great season.
Jack Bauer, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Will.
Heather Bode, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Heather, you ran the first Spartan race of the season in the U.S. here. Tell me about it.
I did. So I ran the Super on Saturday and then the Sprint on Sunday, and it was good. It was in Chino, California, which is a pretty flat course, just rolling hills, so not much elevation. It was good. It was fast. It was really fun. The obstacles, got to see some of the new obstacles. Not going to lie, the new ones are pretty easy, but I can see potential maybe later in the season for Spartan to make them harder or more difficult.
Tell me about the new obstacles. I've seen the Helix.
Yeah, so the Helix was one of them. That was towards the festival area. That was closer to the festival area towards the end of the race. So that's why there were so many photos and video of it. That one was basically, imagine a long X, and it's just these panels with bars and footholds, and you just traverse across it. And like certain panels are covered in plexiglass, which makes it a little harder. However, there's always a foothold and always a handhold. So it's fairly easy in that respect because it's like you're just traversing across weirdly shaped ladders. But I could see how if you're rushing or if it's a really wet or muddy day, you could easily slip. So you just have to be careful. So there was the Helix.
Did you see anybody fail the Helix?
No, when I went back, I saw some of the open waivers sort of slip off. But honestly, most everybody I saw passed it. So it's, as long as you just are careful, I think most people will pass it.
I saw another new obstacle that looked basically like a box with a rope hanging off the side.
Yeah, and a lot of people struggled with that one. I would say that out of all the new obstacles, that's the one that people struggled with the most because it's not like an 8-foot wall. Because with 8-foot walls, you can, get up to the top and you can grip the top of the wall and get your foot over. But with this, it was a box, so there was nothing really to grab onto until you reached the pipe that was a few feet back from the edge of the box. And so there was a rope hanging down, and people were just struggling with how to get up the rope, how to reach that pipe back there. And it's funny because it made me think of Everest in the Tough Mudder obstacle.
Sure.
Because if anybody's run the Tougher Wave or a Toughest Mudder and they've used the ropes on Everest, it's a very similar move. You're climbing this rope on a wall and you're trying to hook your leg or arm up there as best you can. So that's what I used. I used my Everest strategy to get up and over it. So I can see it being challenging in the future, even more than it already is, if they add some mud or water in front of it.
What is your Everest strategy for climbing a rope like that?
So I get as high as I possibly can on the rope. So use all of my upper body strength to get as high as I can. And then I'm fairly flexible, so I throw a leg up there. So I throw my leg as high as I can to kind of hook it over. So at the Spartan race with the 8-foot box, I got high enough to hook my leg over the edge of the box all the way to hit the pipe. And I sort of pulled myself up with a combination of my leg and my arms on the rope.
At Tough Mudder, when they have the ropes down, sometimes people, when they get to the top, they can't make it that last couple feet like you're talking about. I've seen them stand, where they put one of their feet and they kind of stand on the rope to get a little more traction so they can get another foot up.
Yeah, that I think would be a little harder with this Spartan 8-foot box, because while Everest is still slightly at a slope, the 8-foot wall is just vertical. So I can see people trying it, but I don't think that strategy, it's shorter and just purely vertical. So I'm not sure if that strategy would work well.
What did they call the obstacle? Was it the box? What was the name of it?
I don't remember. I don't think there was a sign in front of it, and I don't think anybody has actually given it a name. When they were explaining the rules at the beginning of the competitive waves, they just called it the 8-foot box.
I've seen pictures of it, but I haven't seen any, they haven't really promoted it like they were the Helix earlier.
Yeah, they have some live videos on their event page and the Spartan page, but they just call it the 8-foot box.
Were there any other new obstacles?
Yeah, so there was beater, and from everybody I've talked to, beater is pretty much the universal favorite when it comes to the new obstacles right now. Basically, it's like a set of rotating monkey bars, and that kind of the reason that the name they have the name beater is because it comes from, an egg beater. They just look like 2 or 3 egg beaters kind of all in a row. And so you're going across, you start with a rotating turnstile up to a stationary bar, then down to another rotating turnstile, another stationary bar, one more rotating turnstile, and then the bell. And so if you have pretty extensive experience in upper body obstacles and you're fairly competitive, it's not the most difficult. You just have to you have to be able to get momentum in your swings and be able to control your descents.
This one's a little more Ninja Warrior-ish than most Spartan obstacles.
Yeah, and I think that's why so many people loved it. It's just a fun one to play on. And it's so funny, like myself and so many of the elites and competitive racers I talk to, we just wish it was a little longer. Like if they added another panel or two, it would be just as fun and a little bit more challenging.
How was your race? How'd you do?
I did pretty good. I'm still kind of dealing with this weird knee injury that knocked me out of my 50 miler 2 weeks ago. So that kind of came up towards the end of the super, which really affected my sprint, which sucked. But the super race was pretty good. I ran an age group. I got 8th in age group. And it was just like, it wasn't it wasn't my best race. It wasn't my worst one. Kind of just that nice, slow intro into the season. I was able to maintain pretty good speed. I only failed 2 obstacles, which I shouldn't have, but I did. So all in all, pretty good, slow start to the season.
You got a chance to talk with some of the elites at the course. What did the elites say about the race?
They liked it. A couple of them called it a rust buster, a term I hadn't heard before, which is basically just a race to kind of shake off the rust of the off season. And they liked the course. They liked how flat and fast it was. They commented on how it was really interesting this time around because the first several miles were mostly running. So all the obstacles were backloaded towards the last few miles of the course. And so the first few miles were really all about running speed. And so that made the course interesting, and they liked it. And the top 3 for both men and women were pretty neck and neck both days.
Was this more of a runner's course, or was it, did it favor the obstacle proficient?
Oh, it was definitely more of a runner's course. So, like I mentioned, the new obstacles were fairly easy, and some of their more challenging obstacles were pretty short. Like Twister was only 2 sections as opposed to 3, which it's been in the past. And the rig was only rings and a horizontal pipe instead of the rings and the rope, and the ropes can be difficult. So in terms of obstacles, they weren't the most difficult obstacles I've seen at a Spartan race, and the sandbag carry and the bucket carry were pretty short and very flat, so those were both very easy. So I would definitely say it was quite the runner's course this weekend.
Heather, what is the next OCR you'll be at?
Probably Arizona, so the Spartan weekend in Arizona, I think that's the weekend of February 9th. So that's my next OCR. And then the weekend after that, there's actually a local OCR that I've never experienced before. They're fairly new. They're called Grit OCR. So I'll be checking that out as well.
Is that here in Southern California?
Yeah. I forget where exactly in Southern California, but it's north of San Diego, south of where I'm at in Temecula.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
We mentioned you talked with the elites. You talked with them for your podcast, Overcome and Run. How can people find your podcast?
So you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. So Apple, I think they call it Apple Podcasts, right? What used to be iTunes.
Sure.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. You can also find us on Facebook, Overcome and Run, or our Instagram at Overcome and Run, and our website, overcomeandrun.com, or, of course, through the OCR report.
Heather, any last thoughts on Spartan Socal?
It was a really, really fun opening weekend. It felt like kind of like a nice easing transition into the new year. So I think it's going to be a very interesting year of OCR for sure.
Heather, Bode, thanks much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, before we go, let's go back to Jack Bauer to talk about upcoming races. Jack, there's 2 races coming up in February. February 9th is the Arizona Sprint and Super Weekend. Similar to this race in SoCal last weekend. It's a race. It's good people will show up, but it's not one of the U.S. Series races. The first U.S. Series race of the year, we're expecting all the big guys to show up, is Jacksonville on February 23rd.
Yep, it's very interesting this year. You only have 2 possible U.S. races to do as, a way to shake out your winter training and see where your fitness is before the first major race of the year in Jacksonville. I have never done Jacksonville, but I've been to Florida, and I don't know too many hills in Florida. So I'm going to assume this is a very flat course. I don't know if you guys have followed Ryan Woods on Instagram or Facebook recently. He just ran it's an 8K, which is 4.97 miles. So let's just call it 5 miles. He just ran a trail race in 25:32. So he basically held sub 16-minute 5K pace for 5 miles. If this is a flat course, this early in the season to be in that type of running shape, we all know he's an unbelievable runner. I don't really see a way that he's going to lose at this point based on that level of fitness. And we know how much he's improved over the past couple of years in terms of his obstacle proficiency. He's no longer that guy who does 120 burpees and is able to keep up because he's a great runner. He's a great runner, and now he's just really solid on everything else. He always has some of the fastest carries in the course now. And just with that running speed, I think that this is, unless someone really, really has some crazy increase in performance. I know the early part of the season doesn't matter that much, but I think that Jacksonville is Ryan Woods' race to lose in a month or so.
Ryan Woods was the U.S. Series champion last year. You think he has a strong chance this year also?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why he doesn't. I know he's turning 40, but with speed like that and just his overall strength-to-weight ratio and improvement and all the obstacles, he is a veteran of the sport, and I don't see any reason why he won't be a contender to take home the U.S. Series title again.
Let's talk about the women. Who should we keep an eye on over there?
I think it'll be really interesting to see how Nell Rojas, who we just saw make her Spartan debut in Socal, I think it'll be really interesting to see what she does. Everyone knows Lindsay's going to come out strong. She does not end up on the podium. Lindsay is, at this point, the greatest of all time in terms of female OCR athletes. And I just based on how dominating she was in Tahoe, I know it's the beginning of the season. She probably doesn't put that much stock into it. And last year, Big Bear, she got third, which was, she still had several months to go until Tahoe. So I'm not expecting her to put a whole bunch of pressure on herself doing well, but she'll definitely come ready to race. And I think it'll be a great course. But not just Nell and Lindsay, but Nicole's going to have a phenomenal time running if it's a flat course, just because she's arguably been the fastest pure runner in the field over the past few years. So I think this course is very suited for her as well. And just like I mentioned the other in our 2019 season preview, look out for this girl, Tia Reagan. She has some phenomenal speed. She hasn't raced yet. I think her only race before for Spartan was in Dallas in October, but she was a former pro runner. And if it's a flat course and she's been working with Yancey to make sure that her grip strength is up there, I think that she's going to be a force to be reckoned with as well.
How do you think someone like Rebecca Hammond will do on a flat course?
Oh yeah, she's in that same mold. I think this is going to be you're going to see several sub 5 or sub 6 minute miles. So in the high 5 minute pace, that's unbelievably fast for the women's field and in a race with all these obstacles. So I think that you're going to see some blazing speed. It's going to be really cool to watch, and I would not want to be one of the cameramen out there trying to follow them because they're going to be lighting up the course.
February 23rd, Jacksonville Super and Sprint Weekend, hosted by Visit Jacksonville. Spartan will be live streaming that on their website. Hey, Jack, before we go, some news just broke on the Tough Mudder side. The whole point of our podcast here is talking about the elite racing side of obstacle course racing. Tell me about the news that just broke from Tough Mudder.
Yeah, this is some serious news. I think it is going to have a ripple effect industry-wide. I got an email because I was in the Tough Mudder X Championship last year, and it seems like they're sending this out to all of the people who have competed on their championship races in the past. This is crazy. Apparently, there will be no more prize money, period. Any Tough Mudder brand. This isn't just Tougher. This isn't TMX. World's Toughest Mudder as well. If they're not offering prize money for a 24-hour race where you're destroying yourself, I don't know if it's worth it. I know that some people, I'm talking from the elite side of the sport. I know a lot of people do this. They realize they're never going to beat Orion Atkins. They're never going to get on the top 5 and actually make money off of this race. And it's just, they're just there for the suffering. But on the elite side of it, let's pretend you're Rhea Coble. You're in love with the the ultra events, the super, anything 8+ hours, you're just amazing at it. Do you think it's worth destroying your body for that if you're not going to get paid? I know that she out of basically every athlete out there seems to just love getting out there and just exploring and just experiencing all the suffering and just all the new trails. But that's a lot to ask for if you're not going to make any income off of it. What's your take on it?
I have had regular people and elite people already reaching out to me today saying, hey, what's up with this? And one of them told me that their income is going to be cut in half next year because of this. You and I are talking, we just found out about it within the last hour.
Yeah.
So it's still kind of fresh and
and more is going to come out, I'm sure. I don't want to speculate, but if it seems like it was directly from Tough Mudder, very sincere. They specifically mentioned that they wanted to give everyone an opportunity early in the season to be able to rethink about their race schedule, and they even said that they recognize that this means that they won't be seeing some of the normal elite faces at their events this year. So I think it's legit.
Yeah, they sent out at least two versions of the email that I've seen. One to the elite athletes, and then another one to the ambassadors that says, and the one to the ambassadors has much more of a PR spin on it, saying we're going back to our roots. We're going to, reinvest in the, regular people that are out there in the mud, and teamwork and camaraderie clearly, I know you're right. It sounds very real. And, we may look back on this, 3 months from now, a year from now, being like, wow. Or even remember when they used to pay for races or pay out for it. So this is, again, I don't want to hype it up and be like doom and gloom, but it's not a good thing.
No, absolutely not. And just think of if you're someone like Hunter McIntyre, you put all your chips into making the CrossFit Games, and I think that in terms of if they have a very heavy endurance end of CrossFit, he's definitely going to make it. But if they have some events that just you need years of certain Olympic lifts to actually compete with the top guys, what if he doesn't make it and then his backup plan was Tough Mudder X this year, and that's not even going to give any money? What's going to happen to someone like him? Is he going to regret having that focus? I'm sure that secretly he's not too thrilled about this. Ryan Atkins, you saw the highest earners in OCR. No world's toughest mudder. I wouldn't go out and try to run 110 miles, just put myself through that if I wasn't going to have an opportunity to be financially rewarded for it. That's just my opinion. So I think he and Lindsay are probably really, really bummed out about this financially.
Lindsay's already said she's not running any toughest mudders this year. And I don't think World's Toughest Mudder is going anywhere. I think, 95% of the people out there, they know they're not going to finish in the money.
That's what I was alluding to earlier. And when you think about it, that's kind of the way that the entire sport is. Everyone's been saying it for years. You can't pull a battle frog and only focus on the elites because you'll never get anywhere. Most of the people who are actually bringing the money into the events and allowing the events to happen, those are the open heaters. But if you want to bring legitimacy to the sport, and a lot of people who are open heaters, they look up to the elite racers because that's what they aspire to be later on, you might see a huge drop off. And I think a lot of people as well, there are a lot of brand loyal people. Some people just don't like Spartan. And then what's the other option for them? If they don't live on the eastern part of the country, and you're probably not going to beat Yuri Force too often. So I just think that it's going to be really difficult for some of them to convince them to go to Savage or some of these other events that the prize money just isn't out there anymore in general. I know that Spartan is paying out to the U.S. Series, but they're making it a little bit more restrictive and requiring you to travel to all these major events. And if you miss one, you get 0 points, and that basically ruins your season or any chance of making a bunch of money. So it seems like 2019 is going to be the recession in terms of the OCR prize money. It's kind of unfortunate because it seemed like it was headed in the right direction.
You know what? Yeah. I don't know if you remember back, 2017, the first year of Toughest Mudder, the first year of TMX, the first year of Tougher Mudder. For years, Spartan had the elite race side of it, locked down. They were the unquestioned leader. And then 2017, Tough Mudder said, hey, we want a piece of that action, and kind of, moved to the forefront. Last year, Spartan said, hey, you know what? No, we've done this before. We're going to be in charge now. And Tough Mudder seems like they've clearly backed off and said that's not our focus right now.
definitely. And I know that Alex Walker, we were talking maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and she brought out a really good point. This is before any of this news happened that they weren't going to be giving out prize money. But she said that her dad back in the day gave her some advice saying that if the CEO leaves, you know that there's trouble. And Will Dean, look what happened. He left. So you knew that something was brewing behind the scenes, because he wouldn't have just left for no reason. And now this comes out a couple months later. So I think it was just an omen. And I know Hunter McIntyre on a couple of his Obstacle Dominator podcasts, he kind of referenced that there was some serious financial issues going on behind the scenes.
Jack, how much money did Tough Mudder give out in winnings last year?
All right, all series. This is World's Toughest Mudder, all of the European toughest, all of the individual tougher mudder, where you're going to get the 500, 250, and 100 for the podium. So just like your stereotypical one in Houston or New Orleans, whatever, the regular casual weekend ones. And then also the major championship ones, the one in Seattle where Albin came and won. So all of those combined. Every single dollar amount that they were scheduled to give out, $356,300 this year, according to all the prize money that went out.
$356,000 in prize winnings
In 2018.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So so their budget right now is $350,000 better than it was last year.
That's what it looks like. If they're awarding nothing, then, and that, I don't know if they're going to be giving out free entries anymore. Like, that'll save them some, that'll increase their revenue also, because then people will need to pay for it. So yeah, that's a lot of money to save.
But they are giving out medals.
Apparently, yeah.
That's a lot of medals.
If I was Ryan Atkins, I'd prefer a bunch of zeros after my name, but instead of a medal. But that's just me.
Well, that's clearly why they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to shake up the industry. I really think that this year seemed super promising. You had a lot of people getting really excited about those 12-hour events, people being on podcasts, and it just seems like I'm glad that they've announced this early in the year so that it fairly gives people the opportunity to change their schedule. Like, I know Christopher Mendoza, he already mentioned that he's going to go over to the OCR Enduro 24-hour championship. Do you think he'll be back at World's Toughest Mudder if there's nothing on the line? I mean, I'm sure he's got some student loan debt being a dentist, and I know that World's Toughest Mudder certainly helped with that. But
everyone's going to have a different story. Like Chris, he won World's Toughest last year, $10,000 first prize. Because of that, the enduro people are like, "Hey, we really want you to race at our race." Chris is like, "Yeah, that's a good plan." But again, like you said, he's a dentist, so maybe that doesn't hurt him as much as it would hurt someone like Atkins, who makes plenty of money winning races as long as they're paying you money to win races, right?
Exactly. Yep. And I mean, just my personal experience, like, I know I'm not going to beat Hunter McIntyre at TMX, but I really love doing it. So that's why I travel to a couple of the races to do it. And I think that a lot of people will kind of have the same idea that if this is what you really do and you like OCR, you're going to do it whether or not you're going to get paid. But I think that the best of the best, they're going to look at it and it's like, if you need to put food on the table, are you going to spend $500 to do an entry fee and then get your crew out there and then risk the opportunity of actually breaking even and get a flight? And I mean, it's really going to shake things up.
One of the coolest things about running Toughest Mudder is that you're on a looped course, right? 5 miles loops. So you're passing other people are passing you. So you will see, like I see when I would run a course with Ryan Atkins, he's out there for money. I'm just out there to, for whatever. He'll pass me 4 or 5 times. And that is an amazing experience. Like, I started to recognize his gait by the end of the year,
Yeah.
I haven't talked with Ryan yet, but I can't see him making it as priority like it was last year before.
Yeah, I think that now there's no doubt that they'll be going to the U.S. Championship races for Spartan. And now it's like, do you think he'll change his train? I don't know if he'll end up doing World's Toughest Mudder or not. Maybe somebody independently will sponsor him and make it worth his while, but that's just speculation at this point. He's been so close to winning at Tahoe before. Do you think this is the year where he's like, you know what? I know usually after Tahoe it's a 4 to 8 week period where he's really got to get into that ultra 24-hour mode, do you think that he might say, screw that this year, I'm going all in on Tahoe because this represents the best chance to get paid the most and keep his lifestyle up?
Yeah, I don't know why not. He might do World's Toughest just because, he's Ryan Atkins and he's won it every year, and why not? But, Ryan Atkins got to eat just like the rest of us.
Yeah, and then I know that they're redoing the way that they're going to offer the $1 million challenge for Iceland this year, or assuming it's actually it's not in Iceland this year, allegedly, but you know what I'm talking about. Joe DeSena, he won a mudrun guide, I believe, earlier this year, and he was talking with Brett Stewart, and he was saying that there's going to be a completely new way that they're going to determine who actually has the opportunity to race for the $1 million instead of like, hey, it's Albin or Lindsay. That's it, because those were the only two who won. Mm-hmm. I think that what they said was going to happen was you race Tahoe. I don't know the exact formula, but you race Tahoe, and then if you get first place, you get like 100. Second place, you get 99. And then if you do in Iceland or in Greece, you do the Greece trifecta. You run all three of those, and you add up your score. And if the total of those is like within 10 of the max possible score, then you're eligible for the money, and then they take like a percent of your miles off of 100, and then take that percent off of the million. There's some formula. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I mean that might be in his. He already ran the Spartan 24-hour race. Clearly, he's not against that with World's Toughest Mudder as the same year, but that might be something that Ryan is really, really focused on this year instead of Tough Mudder or World's Toughest Mudder like he's been in the past.
Is there anyone that this is good for?
Amelia Boone, because that means that Rhea Coble might not, take her place as the all-time World's Toughest Mudder best female.
I don't know. You know what? I think it's going to be good for Spartan. I think the athletes are going to go. That's where the money is. So
maybe this could be something where Tough Mudder, they just want to reset their bearings, and they're like, all right, we really need to make sure that we're better with our money this time. They could see themselves going down the Battle Frog route. It was just giving out money left and right. They didn't get the endorsement deals to justify giving out as much money, but they already committed to it at that point. And maybe 2020 rolls around, and then everything resets itself, and it's like this was just a bump in the road. But who knows at this point? It's so early. It's like 8:30 on the night that this broke, so there's not a whole lot more info. And I'm sure that people are going to be asking Nolan and some of the other Tough Mudder guys to get online and just answer some questions really soon, because I know that this is going to affect a lot of top athletes.
A few years ago, Tough Mudder stopped passing out finisher T-shirts. They said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And there was an outcry, and they brought the T-shirts back like a month later. And then last year, they had 2 5-mile loops instead of a 10-mile course. Outcry, bringing it back this year.
Yep.
This isn't going to affect as many people as T-shirts or 5-mile loops. So I don't know if it's going to have the same outcry. But industry-wide, this is going to affect the entire sport. And I don't know if everyone realizes that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's going to affect a very few amount of people, because basically every single time Ryan Atkins is going to take up one of those 5 spots that's getting paid if he's doing individual, and Rhea at this point is going to take up one of those 5 spots. So there are only a few people who are really fighting for money in the past or recently, and because once you get down to 5th place, you win $500, or you did. That's breaking even. Like, I don't think that a lot of people were realistic about making a whole lot of money. So I know I don't think the outcry will be that big. I think it would be nice but if you're asking a company to spend 6 figures just to pay a few more people, like I could understand maybe getting rid of Tougher Mudder because the competition wasn't that great. And if you look at who was winning these events, it's not the same people winning Spartan. It's more like, all right, there was a Spartan in California and a Tougher Mudder in Kentucky. Let's show up because no one's in Kentucky because everyone's over at the Spartan or Savage somewhere else in the country. So it was those kind of people cherry picking in general for the Tougher Mudder events. And that right there, that was over like $70,000 or so. They could have cut that and maybe got rid of a few instead of awarding top 5 prize money, maybe give like top 3, but at least give a reason for some of the top people to still go out there and battle. If you're going to, even if you cut your money in 2/3, like what you're offering, it would at least kind of have a balance point. But then again, if someone asked me to spend, I don't have $360,000 to throw around, but it definitely changes things when you're giving out that much money. So I know that I just hope that long term this is the right decision for everyone.
World's Toughest Mudder used to just pay out first place. First place was, I don't know.
10,000.
Yeah. Second prize was nothing.
Yep.
So, if they're going back to their roots, maybe they course correct a little bit and give something for first place at Worlds, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's true. But you'd think that with some of the sponsorships, I don't know if sponsors just aren't seeing the return on investment, and that's why they're not getting a little bit of extra income, or if they, something bad is going on. That's why Will Dean left, but it's just not publicly being known at this point. And they're just trying to be like, all right, look, we got to get our money in line. Let's address this later. I don't know the whole story, but I'm sure we're going to find out some details soon.
One unintended consequence, I think, or not consequence, but result will be, there's going to, like you say, one of those top 5 spots is always going to be Atkins. It's always going to be Ray Coble, right? So they're gone. So we might see some names that we haven't seen before, or that are all, usually in the top 6 or 7, 8th place. They might start sneaking up into the top 5, top 3.
Yeah.
And maybe they're able to line up some individual sponsorship. Maybe it's better for those people. They're not full-time athletes, but they're out there most weekends kind of thing.
Yeah. But then it's like, at what expense? Are you taking away from the professional side? And like, would you consider the champion who does, 20 miles less than what's historically won the race? Are they on the same level? Probably not.
Yeah.
So it's, will the historians later on see it that way, that it's like, oh, wow, they won the race? Or is it like, oh, they ran the race because all the good people historically didn't show up because they weren't getting paid, and that's the reason that, there was a big downturn in the prestige of the race? But I don't know. We'll see. It's a long season. We made some predictions correct, a couple others not, for the first week of the year. So speculating 10 months from now, that's a lot. But I think that it was really, really a nice thing of them to at least give people the entire season ahead of them to make their changes in their race schedule and their training plans.
Yeah, or Lord forbid they have the race and then say, oh yeah, no prize money. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, didn't that happen I know that they switched it between like the relay and then the 2-person or 4-person team a couple years ago.
They switched it like 3 weeks before the race, 4 weeks before the race.
Yeah, I remember Miguel Medina was like all in on the race, and then they switched it, and it was literally this thing happening, only with significantly less notice. And that wasn't a good situation as well.
All right, well, when more happens, we will talk about it here. Jack Bauer, thanks much.
All right, thanks, Will.
Special thanks to Jack Bauer and Heather Bode for appearing on our show. Well done, you two. Come back anytime. We are going to continue talking about the Tough Mudder prize money situation. This is the biggest story to hit obstacle course racing since Battle Frog folded several years ago. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. I will talk with you soon. Go spend time with someone you love.